And it looks like it's 5:15, so if we want to just get started, I am all for that.
You bet, you're running the show.
Okay, we shall call the meeting to order. Is it just myself on the Zoom?
Yes, it's just you and in the room we have Larry and Ashley, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we should just start with what we learned. Does anybody want to give an update on what they found out?
Yeah, that sounds good. So I did a bunch of research on the ADA stuff, and then in so doing, I found out about the Fair Housing Amendments Act too. So since the building was built, I believe it was built in 1999. For what it is, it should be totally compliant right now. I did see in my research that if apartments were to be added to be compliant, we'd have to start on the bottom floor to give access. Right here, I'll just read this really quick. Okay, under the Fair Housing Act, all covered multifamily dwellings intended for first occupancy, so after 1999 or 1991, are required to be accessible. The design and construction requirements of the act must be met in buildings with 4 or more dwelling units and at least 1 elevator. For larger buildings with no elevator, ADA modified apartments on the ground floor are required. So I guess basically if we were gonna go and talk about putting apartments upstairs, and there would have to be, there'd be the question of access, the elevator thing. So the covered multifamily dwelling.
Hey, Larry, is there a number of how many apartments we have to have, or just 1 compliant would be adequate?
Okay, so those built later than 1988, 5% need to be fully accessible.
Okay.
So, which isn't a whole lot. And then 2% of the units need to be compliant with hearing and visually impaired regulations. So I get a little step up on this one because that's where Lori's at over there. She's got the handicap one with the hearing impaired stuff on it. And then it comes down, it talks about dwelling units that apply, and specifically building with 4+ sleeping rooms with a shared toilet or kitchen, which all has to be fully accessible, as well as common areas, apartment buildings, cooperatives, timeshare units, public housing developments, nursing homes, or assisted living facilities. And then of course, a building with 4+ sleeping rooms.
So we could potentially have like 20 rooms and have one of them be compliant, and it would be,
Yeah,
we could do the ADA and the visual and compliance with just like the 1 room on the bottom floor to start with, it sounds like.
yeah, because I think there's 14 rooms over at Valkerstead. And then there's just 1 full.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
And I did have one other thing too I was gonna bring up. It wasn't my idea, somebody else brought it to me, but I know we were talking about that housing assessment thing for the grants. I was wondering if we don't bring that to the regular housing task force meeting and asked if the borough's grant writer could write a grant for that housing assessment instead of the 70-some thousand dollars or whatever it would be.
Yeah, I was wondering, I never heard anything from Dave about, because Michael was going to forward the grant opportunities, I think, to Dave. And then I wasn't sure, just because we haven't met, I didn't know like if he had looked over those already, or, and then I don't know if you heard anything at all
Heard anything about what?
about the grant things that Aaron was going to forward to Dave.
Oh, I have not heard that. No.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the borough doesn't have a grant writer.
Oh, okay.
I wish we did.
You
But
need a grant writer to write for a grant writer.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know, but it just trying to get away from that big giant dollar sign, push.
Maybe something could be figured out.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do some research,
Okay.
looking into it.
So there's 33 rooms. This is the notes that I had from Sarah, and there was 11 rooms on each floor. So I'm wondering if that 33 is accurate because the second and third are exactly the same. And I want to say that I counted 14, but I could be wrong. But so maybe it is actually 11 on each of those floors. And then the downstairs, the first floor had like 4 rooms and then a big common space area, which all those would have ramp access. The ramp might be destroyed, but that would be easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those bottom floors, those are probably the ones that are, handicap accessible type. Because it specifically talked about the bottom floor needs to have, be compliant with the Disabilities Act and the Fair Housing Act. However, on the flip side too, if it was built in 1999, it should be fully compliant for what it is right now, which is a plus.
Okay. How about, I don't remember what you were looking at, Ashley, looking into.
I was just talking to my contacts about how they staff and secure the places. But most of the people that I know are working mostly at like food banks that I talk to.
Mhm.
But a couple of them like volunteer at shelters. The main thing seemed to be all the staff is like CPR certified and things like that. But they said like their main thing is knowing like obviously if there is an emergency, they know who to call. And then they know like who the like supervisor, person for the facility is that they call. And then they run off of like a volunteer schedule. Some of them run off of, they have staff, but then in addition to that, they just have volunteers also to like supplement that. People who maybe don't want to make the commitment to, providing a service or support all the time, but they're willing to do it, sometimes. And then, we discussed also how everything is like really like everything has like a number on it. So like when you check in, you're assigned like the number 1, you're the first person there. And then, the like your bed is number 1 and the blankets that you get have number 1 on them, so that they know when that stuff in the morning then is getting turned in. And then that kind of they can like check everything off. So it's just like really organized was like a lot of like the feedback that I got, just trying to like simplify it and just keep everything as organized as possible so that it's like a quick turnover for the next day or whenever like you reopen for people to be able to stay there.
Yeah, it's cool.
And then it sounded like, a lot of it fluctuates just based on like the need for the community. It's hard to know like an exact number, I feel like, for like how many people would need to staff a facility. But I mean, it sounds like you need like whoever the manager or, whatever the organization is that you would, this place would be under, like who's the manager and then, the staff members beneath there. And then in addition, if you're signing on like one of the things one of my friends talked about was one of the facilities she volunteered at, they just did contract work. Like they just had people come in who could use their facility, kind of like what we talked about, but they could do like, if I went in to provide, behavioral health services, I'm just contracted with the facility to be able to be in that space and, utilize their rooms to, do services during the daytime, or like if WAVE wanted to be in there, just all those partnerships to kind of provide, I guess that additional like day-to-day support rather than having it just be like just the shelter has to be providing all of that, which is basically the model that we had talked about anyway.
Oh, yeah, that sounds cool. So I think, I mean, it seems like you'd want at least 2 people working to cover the shelter in my mind anyways.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking if we do like check in at, I don't know, it's like 8 o'clock, or we probably want to serve some sort of dinner though, like, or the doors maybe lock at 8 and then, because you could serve dinner even at 6 and people could come in and just get dinner and then leave if they
Mhm.
just needed food. And then, so doors lock at 8 and then at 8 in the morning, everyone is able to leave or whatever, or maybe expected to leave, I guess is.
Yeah, and one of the things that one of the people, I actually didn't know this person, I just called them. What they were talking about was that they run specifically a warming shelter, because I said that was like what we like the year 1 goal, and they base it off of like, I mean, it's like based off of like they had a chart of like wind chill and like what the temperature
wow.
was, and so like they operated on like a week by week basis. And so like they're not, because I think they're like very short staffed also, it seemed like, but they identified like we can get people here, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that, I mean, I don't know what our capacity vision for the very beginning is, but it sounded like, so they do heat and cold though, so they were open for the coldest times, and then they have a hiatus, and then they open up again in the summer when it gets really hot, to provide people that respite from that weather as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know, when we were talking about like year 1, I think we had wrote warming shelter, and I didn't know if that meant, I mean, we talked about emergency sheltering, but with warming shelter, does that mean like we're only planning to be open for the winter? I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, I don't think we really decided yet. I think it'd be nice if that's all we can get, but if we had a place, even during the summertime where people could go, I think that would really benefit the community a lot. That, there's people who get kicked out or whatever if they're housing in the summer, and it still can be pretty cold and rainy, and
Yeah.
that's not fun to be in. So
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, where we live is not like ideal to be. I mean, we don't really, our weather's just like, yeah. I mean, it could be worse, but it could be better.
So maybe it's just a night shelter instead of a warming shelter.
Yeah. Yeah. Because those, even with like, yeah, more like the emergency shelter thing, because I think like funding streams are just different too, dependent on like how exactly you're providing those services that look like. I don't know, a lot of the charts were actually quite confusing, so I was trying to of like where the funding revenue streams are, because a lot of them are nonprofits and you can see where the funding comes from for the different like programs that were being run, but it was, I mean, it's like chaos, as like some of us now figuring out how to get.
So there was what, four rooms on the bottom floor?
Yeah, I think for a warming or a night shelter, whatever we're moving forward with, I was thinking more in that congregate, like where the tables and stuff would be for their meals, and then we just have like a mat where you can sleep. So and that would be kind of like year 1. And then as we kind of get things figured out, then maybe in year 2 we can talk about more of the apartment and what is it called?
Like the
Transitional housing.
Yeah, transitional housing. Well, I was just thinking if they do have those 4 rooms on the bottom floor to be compliant, which I'm sure they are, that would be a great base to start. Like you were saying,
And I know we kind of like briefly had touched on, again, I'm not really sure exactly how like specific this like proposal has to be, but I know we'd kind of briefly touched on like if a family was to come, you know, being able to have a space for them and things like that. But I think just keeping it really simple, like for that,
I
like you were
agree.
saying, like you get a numbered mat that says your number
Yeah.
when you came in, and then there's a set time that everyone knows they have to leave in the morning. And I think there's a lot of like policies and procedures that we could, like, you can just like, we could reutilize for like, we don't have to like reinvent it or anything. It's already been, this is being done already.
Yeah, agreed. I think I would be hesitant to try to move to like having a family housing unit of some sort, because then I think a lot of people are like, oh, we're family, or, you know, what's the definition of a family? And that could just get really messy. I think if we just had one room where we're just, you know, this is from 8 to 8. You can sleep here if you'd like. And I know it's not the best and most comfortable, but it's not outside. So
Definitely a step in the right direction, for sure.
mhm. Okay. Was there anything else that you had heard from, I think you said, was it you that said Jolyn sent you
Jalen
something?
emailed us,
Jalen?
you and I.
Jalen, thanks.
I don't know if you
Okay,
saw
I didn't
that.
even realize. I haven't, it's been a busy day. I have no idea I haven't looked at my email yet.
Yeah, she emailed us. She said the majority of transitional housing programs work on an income-based rental scale. A base rent is usually determined by management, and rent is determined by a percentage of the family's median annual income. And then she attached some information about transitional housing and some grant information. And yeah, she basically just said if you apply for a grant for transitional housing, there's strings, which I mean, with all grants there are.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see that in my email, but that's okay.
You're AnnetteBennett@gmail.com.
No, I am Annette W. Bennett. So that might be why.
Oh yeah, that's what's in here. Whoops.
Is that what it says in it?
Oh, and she sent it to your Wave account.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's definitely going
We're all over the
nowhere.
place.
Are you forwarding?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like having transitional housing in year 2, I would love to see that, but I also feel like that might be difficult to attain, because I think there's going to be a lot of bumps that we're not going to, as much as we want to be prepared for things, something's going to come up that we didn't plan for as a part of the shelter staffing. So it might be kind of nice to have some sort of shelter staffing or shelter program for the first even 2 years.
Yeah.
To kind of get it really solid and then move into transitional housing. Like, I know that means that, you know, those upstairs areas are just kind of not being utilized. But it just seems like realistically, what can we do? And if we're relying on grant funding, like applying and then getting the award is going to take some time too. So
Well, maybe like on year 2, if you just stick with the night shelter thing for 2 years, maybe on year 2, you'd be able to start renovating the apartments and things like that.
yeah.
Looking forward to year 3.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was something else here too. Okay, so basically, the Fair Housing Act, requires 7 design features to be incorporated into buildings that would allow units to be quickly adapt to meet accessibility guidelines. Required for structures built after March 13th, 1988, the Fair Housing Act applies to all ground units, buildings. Okay, and then it talks about to be compliant. These don't necessarily have to be accessible. They just need to be adaptable. So I don't know if those adaptable things were built into this building according to the dates and it was built, possibly. So there might be structure there for, like for, okay, for like instance, reinforced walls to accommodate grab bars. You know, there's like 7 of them here, but I don't know if that's built into it, but that would be a great thing to look into. Especially thinking about converting maybe after year 2.
Okay.
I think, like in the plan, I mean, right off the bat, year 1 and 2, I think it would be very doable to have like organizations partner like with us right away. I feel like there's a
Mhm.
lot of people and agencies that are already passionate about providing services that are accessible to everyone. And so this would be like a good opportunity. I don't really see there being like a wait time on that portion of it either necessarily. So that might even be a way that we could utilize some of the space that we're not using would be like, you know, if we have certain things that we can plan, you know, or somebody knows for a couple months, we can get like someone from HUD down here and they need a temporary office and, you know, things like that. We would be able to provide that opportunity too. You know, sometimes I think, well, first, it's hard to get outside resources here, but also once we do get them interested, we have nowhere for them to like kind of be even like housed at necessarily.
Yeah, the hard thing there, like on the 2nd and 3rd floor though, is that it's not accessible to everyone. And so that makes it difficult for a lot of agencies to be able to utilize if they're getting federal funding. You know,
Well,
Wade
even if
can,
they just needed to like store their stuff, like just
Oh,
as
yeah.
like a,
Okay.
you know, like they can come and they can work with participants downstairs, but you know, they need their stuff to be safely, you know, locked up somewhere, you know, to give like
Yeah.
that opportunity, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish there was more rooms downstairs because that seems like such an amazing opportunity to connect with people in like a pretty central location, which is cool.
Mhm.
I was also thinking, you know, like you had mentioned different agencies that we could work with. You know, there's a lot of churches that this could be an opportunity for them to, you know, support the community, even if it's just making a meal one night or whatever. Be really nice.
I think community involvement is super important, and especially for the people that are in this situation to feel welcome instead of alienated. I think that's super important.
Yeah. So in the year 1 and 2 plan, it would be the soup kitchen aspect of it would be on there as well, correct?
Yeah. I think that kitchen's already there. I don't see why it would. I don't see an issue with that being a quick turnaround thing. 12 hours. What I was trying to wonder or figure out is if we did 12-hour shifts, how many employees do we need? Or how many people do we need in order to make that happen?
Well, your 12-hour shift, it's not all day though.
Yeah, but but if you're working from 8 to 8, unless we wanted to split, like, you know, one person could work from 8 to midnight and then midnight to 8 or something.
But also if you're doing the soup kitchen thing, you would need someone there earlier for that, yes? Or were you planning that
Yeah.
would be someone else doing it?
I
So
was
maybe, you know,
kind-
someone from like 4 to 11 and then 11
Mhm.
or, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I think it would be
What-
nice if we could come up with an idea of how many staff we think are needed in order to pull this off. And not that they have to be paid staff, but like volunteers or whatever.
What is the evening, like, for example, like the evening dispatcher? Do you know what their, like, what time do they start and what time do they?
Their shifts
Huh?
are?
Yeah.
I could find out. I don't actually know right now because they kind of changed them, but
Yeah,
I'll
they
find out.
changed
just-
because when they have an actual full staff, it might be different than
Yes.
like
That's
a
true.
majority of the
That's
time
true.
when they don't have full staff.
But I will ask that question and then I think the next meeting, David scheduled it for the 21st at 6 PM. So I'll make sure or I'll try to email you guys or something with that answer.
Okay. Is there anything else that we did not bring up or talk about that we need to kind of add into this plan?
We have the cost, right? Somebody's had that already. I don't remember what.
I think Sarah had that, or I don't know if she ever got an actual cost, but they weren't returning any of my phone calls. So,
Because I would say that should be in the proposal.
If I remember correctly, I think it was like 750,000 for the building. I actually spent a little bit of time the other day and walked around it and it's huge. I mean, it's got killer potential, you know, for it to be sitting there and not being used.
Well, Gary Albaugh did say too that he recently went through that building pretty thoroughly, so he may know
Mhm.
if there's the adaptability provisions built into it or not.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be
mhm.
something really interesting. But it seems to me from what I've read and stuff, that downstairs would be ready to go. I mean, it should be all compliant and
I'm curious, I mean, I don't think this needs to be in the plan, just like out of curiosity, like what it costs to like heat that building, for example.
It's a good question.
Yeah. And it hasn't really been fully heated. Like they keep the heat going so it doesn't, their pipes don't freeze and stuff, but not at a temperature where people would be staying, you know?
Gotcha.
For a long time, so it's not like we
Yeah.
could even look back, I don't think.
mhm.
We'd have to
Yeah, it's-
estimate.
It's always been, and it's, if I remember right, it was an oil furnace that heats that, like it's just a broiler or whatever it's called. I don't know.
Boiler, yeah. It needs to be converted with a heat pump.
Yeah. It's a way to go. Sure.
So would there be laundry to be done? Would you guys be supplying blankets or just the mat?
There is laundry on the second and third floors. I know that there was bathrooms and then laundry kind of across the hall for folks. And I don't know, I don't think that there is laundry on the first floor, but
I would, like, the way I envision it is like, if we give them a blanket, we wash the blanket, but we're not like, that
Doing
would
your
be like
laundry.
our staff doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
And it would be like just like the things that we are providing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I was even wondering if maybe our local laundromat would donate the washing of those things. You know, that might be
Mm.
something they could donate toward the issue.
yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of people. A lot of people are like really in support, but I think you mentioned it last time, Ashley, is that people want to work and do stuff, but we just don't know
Yeah.
what, you know?
Mhm.
Yep.
But there's a lot of good-hearted people out there that I talk to that are really in support. A lot of people are really shocked that Petersburg does have the homeless,
Yeah.
you know, population that we do.
And I like the idea of like presenting it as both, like the staffing would be both hired and volunteer, because you know, just in like my own conversations with people, there are people who are not going to apply for a job to do that every night. But they're
Mhm.
like, hey, like, you know, Thursday, you know, evenings, I could do that, but I can't necessarily commit to 5 days a week. But, you know,
Mhm.
once you get several people that can do one day even, that really takes off, you know, a lot of that pressure to find all these, you know, extra employees. And I think by providing, I mean, with the goal of being able to also provide transitional housing, I mean, then you open up your own kind of like hiring stream even because, you know, you're providing people this opportunity to have shelter so that they can focus, like we talked about before, on other things like finding a job or, you know, going to the doctor and, you know, taking care of the things that aren't just that like pure survival mode. Um, so I think that's like an exciting like aspect of it as well.
Another,
As long as you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was thinking another way we could maybe look at shift assignments is, I think the Ocean Beauty, or what is it called now? OBI. They usually have like one person that is their security officer that does kind of a night shift. I'm assuming they have some people there during the day too, but if we could figure out what that shift looks like, that might be a good model to kind of base this on, because they're going to have someone there, you know, overnight, and what that
Yeah.
looks like. What were you going to say, Debbie?
I was just gonna say that, basically, if you have a good coordinator, a good team leader, running this whole thing, and you have enough volunteers, it should work well. You're just gonna have to have someone that's really gung ho and making sure that they're contacting those volunteers and, you know, getting them in and all of that.
Yeah, I think if we have enough people, it's not all on one person. And that's just the trick. It's really,
Well, that's true, a team of
Yeah.
people.
would be really good.
Yeah, because it can be very, I mean, I'm just thinking of Sandy Dixon, you know, when she was the
Mhm.
fire department director and being so, low staffed on EMT staff and everything, and volunteers. And
Mhm.
that was hard. So it is hard for it to be one person's responsibility to make sure everything gets pulled together.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it works for like, you know, part-time, like if you have like super part-time staff, like if you got the funding and you had people
Mhm.
who, you know, were like, I need a 2-day-a-week thing, you know, I mean, then it's just part-time
Mhm.
employment if you, so as it grows, you know, you start off, you need a lot of volunteers and things, but like eventually maybe even the hope could be that like some of those people who have been passionately helping us through the volunteer capacity could become, you know, part-time paid employees, you know, things like that. And, you know, I think that it's just hard to know exactly how many people would you know, when you're trying to estimate in your head, like how many people are going to be coming every night or like, you know, what does that look like for like, you know, I guess that's when you're thinking of the plan, that's like the hard thing is figuring out like
Mhm.
what that may even look like.
Guesstimating.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
And
planning
I
a
do
wedding. You
think,
never know who's going to show up.
yeah. Well, and I think you know, building trust like with the community also is important that like this is like a safe resource and you
Mhm.
know, the partnerships that like you create based on like those things would be really important and being able to, you know, have the support of, you know, all those entities to make it work.
Yeah.
Well, the thing in January that you do, I'm sorry, I don't, forgot the name.
Project Connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, probably gonna get a really good idea just off of that. I mean, like maybe a questionnaire, if there was a place, would you be willing, or do you know somebody who's willing to try to come up with some kind of numbers?
Yeah, and I mean, we have the data of, because for that particular event, the question that we ask is, like the first question is, like, where did you sleep last night? Because that's the main part, is to figure out, on that particular day, how many people in your community were directly experiencing homelessness. And then from there, it's like, in the last 3 months, have you spent more or less than like 7 days in a place not meant for habitation? So we do have all that data. So that's, I mean, a good indicator. I think that's kind of like, for myself especially, that's why I feel like this is really needed, because I've looked, I mean, I do that event every year. So, for 6 years, I've been collecting data saying that the need is increasing. And, I would say it's hard. I mean, that event is a good indicator, but also not even the whole picture, because we're only getting the people that are coming to that event. So
Right.
like, you can say that number, but then add a plus sign to the end for sure, because we definitely are not getting everybody there that, deserves to be represented.
Yeah, like whenever that event happens, there's always people that you're like, oh, why aren't they here?
Yeah.
Like, that they're experiencing homelessness and you want them to be there, but they're not. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to being there
Yeah.
this January. See, I didn't even know, but then I was in my own space or whatever, out in the mountains for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really encouraging. I mean, I remember when I started mental health 3 years ago, during the pandemic, I brought this up before, but there was like an astronomical number that I overheard up at Petersburg Mental Health. And I don't want to quote a number, but it was a lot of people,
Mm.
and it was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I had no idea up until that point, so.
Yeah, that event has been very eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people, being able to utilize it as just like, an educational opportunity, even to talk about like, oh, we have this event, we have participants, this is happening in our community.
do you guys have anything else? I feel like I don't have anything else to add.
I have written down, I don't know if there was something specific someone was supposed to find out. I just have written down bathrooms ? From last time, because I think we were figuring out what the requirements for that would be as well. Are there bathrooms downstairs? Do you know?
There are, there's
Oh,
not,
okay.
again, at each floor, I want to say that there was like 4 toilets per floor, but I might be wrong, but it was very few and I was very shocked. Like, this supports all of these people? It's okay. Okay.
Gotcha.
And then they had showers in each, I don't know if there were showers on the first floor, but there were showers on the second and third floor.
Okay. I wonder if there's like a rule about like how many people you have and for,
You'd think there should be.
that's why I'm like, well, I hope there is, but also.
Yeah.
But if
Per
it was built
capita
after
toilets?
1989, hopefully
Yeah.
it's, well, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, it says right here, the buildings with 4+ sleeping rooms with a shared toilet and kitchen. That sounds like the bottom floor to me. Yeah, no, this is exciting. And I'm really seeing stuff all over the place now, talking about it. I mean, Anchorage and all over the
It's
United States.
everywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
Sure.
good because we won't have to reinvent everything.
Yes. I
Mhm.
think the main selling point for like this idea, even if it didn't, in the long term, even if it doesn't work out for the bunkhouse, which I hope it does. But it's just that like this is being done like in so many places. Like it's very like it's obviously something that is attainable. Yeah. So like to see that is encouraging, because I feel like then in presenting it, it's easier to present something that's like happening everywhere.
So I'm not sure if I crossed any lines or anything, but I did on Thanksgiving, I did write Dan Sullivan's office, Murkowski's office and, Mary Petula, Dola's office, on Thanksgiving and said a little spiel about Petersburg not having, anything. We have this bunkhouse that's sitting here and if you have any ideas or any help or whatever, so I got one response back from Congresswoman Petula. And she said that her staff was gonna look into it. I mean, I know she's really busy right now and everything, but that was a good, it was a step in the right direction. I mean, I felt pretty positive about it. Dan Sullivan helped me, his office helped me with my disability, so I'm not like a naysayer when it comes to politicians blankets, like,
Yeah.
so.
It's good. Maybe even Bert Stedman and who's the new gal out of Sitka? What's her name?
Oh,
Our state reps.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's Stephanie's
We'll learn
aunt.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
I will.
Well, and that's something too, you guys, that the assembly, if you ask the assembly to support it and, write a letter to our representatives.
Yes, so I've
Yeah.
already just had meetings with staff members of both Sullivan and Murkowski, and they've already, they see the clear issue with us not having emergency sheltering, and they were very supportive and confident that they could get a letter of support from both of their delegates. I just wanted us to know kind of like what our plan was before we do a
Sure, yeah. Start
um,
sending out those letters of support.
yeah, but I think we could very easily get that. It seemed like the meetings were very positive.
Cool.
Good.
Right on.
I don't know, Annette, if you still have the contact information for Murkowski's.
I do somewhere, yeah.
I don't remember what.
Sherry Klein.
I don't remember the name. I'd have
It
to
was
look it up in my contacts.
Two women.
Okay, well, Sherry Klein is the, who we actually deal with for both Murkowski and Sullivan. She lives in Ketchikan, I believe, but she
Mm.
works for both of them.
No, then that wasn't. They are based in DC,
Ah, okay.
who we met with.
Mhm.
Yeah, I have her card at my desk.
Okay, perfect. 'Cause I was like, I don't know where mine is.
When we get there, we have that information.
Okay.
Cool.
Um,
Uh,
so maybe if we just want to reach out to OBI about how they do their security shift schedules.
yeah, does anybody have someone they could contact there? Or want to take that on?
I do not.
I'm not on
know.
your thingy, but I will call and ask. It
Okay.
doesn't hurt.
Okay.
If I'm gonna supply the schedules for the dispatchers, I will call OBI tomorrow and ask, and then I'll just email you Annette.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I think we would say that we want like at least one main supervisor, like the director, whoever. And then I think that for sure having like one person like directly under them to also help coordinate. I mean, like they would provide support for the evening shifts and all that stuff, but it also would be able to help coordinate like the volunteers and all that stuff, like you were saying that, so it's not just like one person that
Mhm.
feels tasked to do it all. So it
Yeah.
almost seems like with actual staff members, you might just need like to start with 2 main staff members and then volunteers. 3 would be great, but minimum, you would probably want 2.
Well, are you gonna be offering this 7 days a week?
Oh, would we offer it 7 days a week? I would just,
Yeah, I think so.
Like
I think that's the
for
only
sure
way
in
it
the
will be
wintertime, right?
successful. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say maybe even 3 staff.
yeah.
Hmm.
obviously with the goal being that it would get, we would get more staff, but yeah, I would say in the beginning, the minimum we would want would be 3.
So I took some notes. Debbie, should I just send that to you to send out to folks? It's just
Sure,
kind of
you bet. And I
jotting
took some-
down things, but
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, if you wanted to send them to me, I can try to put it together and send it out to everybody.
okay. Do we think that we need another meeting, or we feel like the 21st is good and we have enough of a plan to present?
I feel like we have like, I mean, since we're not presenting it to the borough, like, if we were doing that, we would need more time, but I think just for our group, like, we have enough information, I would say.
I think so too.
And we
Okay.
know like what our vision is.
And then you guys at the next meeting can actually vote on what it is you want to bring forward.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Make your decisions and
Yeah.
of what you're gonna go to the assembly with.
Cause I don't remember when Dave said he wanted to like make the official proposal. It was in January.
Thought it was in January, but of
Yeah.
course, I think he's totally flexible as well, depending on what you guys all decide.
It was in January. I
Okay.
don't remember which meeting it was, but I also just realized I think I'm out of town the last week of January. It was
You are,
before
'cause that's
Project Connect.
Connect.
Yeah. I think it was like the 21st or something like that.
Cause that would give time then between when we talk to everybody and try and decide to, if there are things we have to kind of iron out still. Before that, we would have time.
Well, what about the housing assessments thing? Do you want to proceed like trying to do it with grants, or do we want to?
So I think that's like for the whole group
Yeah.
to
just
kind
to
of
vote on
decide
it,
like
to-
what, yeah.
To present that, because
I mean, I think our subcommittee is like in full support of a
Oh, yeah.
housing
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely,
needs assessment.
for sure.
But yeah,
So I looked back and it looked like the original email that went out, the meeting on the 21st, December 21st, then the next one, what he suggested was Wednesday, January 11th. For the
Okay.
group, so maybe he was planning on bringing it forward to the assembly, like at the January 17th meeting. I'm not sure if that's the right.
Yeah.
date.
Yep, that sounds right.
Okay.
Okay. I feel like we could adjourn if you guys are up for it.
Sounds good.
yeah, that sounds good. I will let Jalen know that we're just gonna meet, just not schedule another meeting and just meet on the 21st then.
Okay.
Annette, I am out of the office all next week, so if I am unable, or if you're unable to put your notes together and me to get it out tomorrow, I'll ask Becky to help us, okay?
Okay. I'm gonna send it actually now. So,
Okay, sounds great. Then I'll work on it in the morning.
okay.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Yeah.
Drive safe, everybody.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.